Holy cow, this is a very overwhelming moment for me. I think about the journey that God brought me on, and I really can't believe I'm here in this moment right now. So anyway, thank you for having me. All right. I am the youngest of four. I have an older brother and two older sisters. I was raised in a very structured, legalistic home. My mom homeschooled all four of us, and my dad worked a full-time job. I loved being homeschooled. My brother and I would wake up really early in the morning, get our schoolwork done, and be outside playing by 11 o'clock in the morning. He and I were really close and did everything together. I didn't play with my older sisters too often. I was much happier playing outside with my brother. When my dad would come home from work, it was time to practice whichever sport I was currently involved in. Hours and hours went into practicing sports. He was a good dad. My parents were always there for us kids, and I always thought they had a strong marriage. I would hear yelling coming from the walls from their bedroom into mine, but I just assumed it was normal. I felt like I was the peacemaker in the family, and a calm household could be created by either getting out of the way or figuring out what they wanted and making sure they got it. I learned instinctively how to do exactly what my mom or brother wanted me to do in order to keep them happy. I didn't care what it took. I just didn't want my mom to yell or my brother to hit me. I learned to stay out of my mom's way when she was upset, and I figured out how to let my brother win whatever game we were playing to avoid having it thrown at me. My mom yelled and screamed at us a lot and was completely unavailable emotionally. I had zero connection with my mom. She put the fear of herself deep down to my core. I felt like I was walking on eggshells as a kid, always waited to see what my mom's mood was, then I would adjust accordingly. My mom was unapproachable and not a safe person to turn to for protection. I learned how to toughen up and depend on myself. My brother was my buddy. He taught me how to play cars and trucks, build forts, and shoot hoops. We played a lot together. I don't remember our ages when it happened, but he all of a sudden found his temper. He did not like losing to a girl, much less his baby sister. I learned the art of dodging at a young age. I dodged Monopoly, checkers, a hockey stick, punches, and rocks from a slingshot. My record wasn't an undefeated one, but I managed to dodge the most important ones. One day, though, my brother and sister got into a water fight. My brother was getting so mad at her, he ran to our front door, opened it, and stood in the doorway. My sister was getting the house soaked, and I knew my mom would be home soon. After shutting the door a couple of times, my brother grabbed a butcher knife, pushed me into the corner, and put the knife to my neck. Leave the door open. I was around 8 years old. When he put the knife away, I quickly grabbed a towel and started cleaning up the house. I didn't want anyone to get in trouble. I didn't tell anyone about what he had done. The abuse from my brother continued on a regular basis. I would try to lock myself in the bathroom when he was chasing me, but I just wasn't fast enough. He'd barge through the door, throw me on the ground, and jump up and down on my back. I couldn't go to my mom for help. She wasn't safe either. In second grade, I met my first best friend. She and I practically became attached at the hip. I got to talk to her about all sorts of things. She taught me a lot about girl stuff, how a woman gets pregnant, and would report to me what she learned at sex ed class. My mom didn't teach me any of those things, so I was very intrigued and asked a ton of questions. My friend made me extremely happy, and she felt safe, so I talked to her about everything. I closed up even more at home. She was my safety, and now looking back, I realized she was my God. Being raised in a legalistic church, there was no emphasis on a personal relationship with God. My God was scary like my mom. My Jesus wasn't approachable, and I wasn't even close to being good enough to speak to him. One day in sixth grade, my friend made up a new game. I was to sit in the middle of the living room, and she would ask me sexual questions. If I didn't know the answer, they would run around the house laughing hysterically. I barely knew any of the answers, so there was a whole lot of laughing. I felt like I was being completely rejected by my best friend, my one safe person. When I didn't know different names for the male anatomy, she thought it was so funny she decided to take me to the neighbor's house to tell our guy friend. Embarrassed doesn't even come close to describing what I felt. My mom knew something was wrong when she picked me up that day, but there was no way I was going to tell her. I didn't tell her anything. I stuffed that moment and never talked about it with anyone. My friend suddenly dropped me as a friend the end of our 7th grade year. I still have no idea, but I lost my safety net when she did. High school came around and I met my next best friend. Again, I grew attached to her hip and I latched onto her emotionally. When she got her first boyfriend, I was extremely jealous, paralyzing jealous. My thoughts were consumed with her and her boyfriend. He was stealing my time with her away. He was interfering with our friendship and I wanted him to go away. I hated her boyfriend because of this. She was my friend. I found her first. She and I got in a fight one night because of this jealousy, and I admitted that I feared that I was a lesbian due to my feelings. It was the first time I had ever said that word or even thought that maybe there was something wrong with me. I was 16. I buried that fear, and it became a dark secret of mine for the next 9 years. This pattern would happen again in college and again when I first moved to Arizona. With each friendship, the emotional dependency was getting stronger and stronger. Finally, I met someone that reciprocated my passion to be around one another. She desired to be around me as much, if not more, than I desired to be around her. Someone who wanted to be in constant communication and to be around each other on a regular basis. It was a dream come true. This girl was married, so I didn't have to worry about her getting a boyfriend and feeling ridiculously jealous over it. She was safe. No new guy was going to come in and steal her away from me. She wanted to know everything about me. It felt so good to have as much attention as she gave me. I felt like I was important for once, and I felt truly loved. Someone was choosing me. We hung out more and more, conversations became more and more personal, and one late night of talking on the phone, I told her my deepest, darkest secret. After 9 years, I finally admitted to someone that I was scared I might be a lesbian. That confession led her to tell me about her feelings towards women as well, except she had acted on her feelings before. 6 months later, our friendship crossed the line. For months, we snuck behind her husband's back and had a relationship with each other. Lies upon lies were told to both of our families and friends. I even got a boyfriend during our relationship. I was successfully leading 2 completely separate lives. The highs and lows were so extreme. When we were together, it was practically euphoric. And when she left, it was ridiculously depressing. Severe heartache every time she walked out the door. Nothing else in the world mattered to me except for her. It felt so good to be chosen over her husband. I hated that he got her the majority of the time, but when she would lie to him and come over to my place, I was her number one for that moment. She was purposely cheating on her husband to be with me. I felt like I was finally validated. I was chosen, loved, and cared for. I longed for that emotional connection with my mom, but love from this girl felt unconditional rather than based on what I did right. But guilt started setting in, and Jesus started running after my heart. I decided to go to a different church with my friends, and I timidly walked into a non-denominational church for the first time. The sermon was on the prodigal son that day. I had never heard Jesus' love preached like that before, and I bawled. I wanted to be right with God again. I told my friends I needed help, and they got me in touch with a pastor that day. With love, he spoke truth to me, listened to me, and then told me to run from my sin and never look back. The girl I was dating had no warning, and she never got a goodbye from me. Communication was completely cut off. I was an absolute wreck, but at the same time, I was so relieved my secret was out. Still seeing my pastor on a weekly basis, I was encouraged to tell my family about what I was going through. So the next time we were all together, I told them that I had been in a relationship with a woman. Since that day, a little over 7 years ago, my parents have mentioned my issue once. It was a new family secret, and it went without saying it wouldn't be spoken about again. All I wanted was a close relationship with my mom, and this just seemed to distance us even further. I continued counseling with my pastor, and he recommended a book called Restoring Sexual Identity by Ann Paulk. I read that book in 3 days. Probably not how you're supposed to read that book, but I was so relieved to learn that I wasn't alone, that there was a cause to my madness, and most importantly, there were success stories. I believe that book played a huge role in saving my life. A huge thank you to Anne for writing it. I'm being bold enough to keep the hope alive through ministry here at Archen. Once I got through the emotional trauma of the breakup, my pastor encouraged me to seek professional counseling. I went through a year of reparative therapy, which helped me to identify my needs how to get those needs met in healthy ways, and appreciate femininity. I was also introduced to a ministry called Celebrate Recovery. This 12-step program was the final piece in my journey. The first 3 steps were focused on my relationship with Jesus Christ, and I realized I was powerless over my struggle. I learned how to have a personal relationship with Jesus and started going to him versus only relying on my friends. I was also surrounded by women and learned how to set healthy boundaries with them. Listening to their struggles helped normalize mine, and I felt accepted and loved despite my past. I joined a crafting group, which helped me to feel like a woman among women and not feel like such an outsider to my own sex. That was probably more terrifying than telling my pastor. My confidence grew. I am truly happy in my chosen lifestyle. I don't have to sneak around. My life is an open book, and I'm not trying to hide from God. I'm not proud of my past, but I am proud of where Jesus has brought me because of it. I wouldn't change the freedom and peace that I feel now for anything in the world. Today, my brother and I have a great relationship. My mom and I are starting to have more good days than bad, and my relationships with women are strong, healthy friendships. I thank God for ministries like RHN, Portland Fellowship, and Celebrate Recovery, and for the women on my support team who have not judged me, but have supported the path God called me to walk down. I rarely struggle with same-sex attraction now, but when I do, I can identify my needs, ask to have them met, and be free from those thoughts and feelings. I am so grateful for the resources we have available today, and for everyone here who are trying to educate themselves on this issue so that they can support more people who are trying to walk with Christ. Thanks for letting me share.